Good morning, everyone. It's Sunday, September 3rd, Labor Day, and I'm Reverend Cherie Ruffo. I'm going to be talking today about Labor Day itself and Plerk. Play plus work equals Plerk. It's great, a fun topic, and one that I'm excited to share with you. So when I think back to Labor Day, and I think back to um, what my thoughts about it were, and I didn't understand what it was for a really long time. And I don't think I'm the only one out there that's like that. But we know tomorrow's Labor Day. And it's the day each year that we celebrate the labor movement. And we celebrate all the people for the work that they're doing in this movement. You know, the origins of Labor Day date back to the late 19th century when activists first sought to establish a day that would pay tribute to workers. Because of course, when we have a society like we live in the United States of America, if we don't have workers, we're not going to have a moving economy. Things aren't going to work well. So that's our time to really celebrate them. And the first Labor Day was celebrated. It took place in New York City on September 5th, 1882. So it's been around for a while. And in my own life, when I think about this and I think about work, I think about it being a day of celebration of work, of the work that I do. And what I mean by this is I celebrate tomorrow because I have the privilege and the honor of celebrating, of being able to do the things that I love the most and also make a living at doing that. And to me, that is such a blessing and a celebration. So along in my professional career, I founded 3 kids camps, and that was from two of them were when I worked with one was Epilepsy Foundation of Hawaii, Epilepsy Foundation of Washington, and then Diabetes Foundation of Rhode Island. And I worked hard at raising funds for them, putting them together, and then camping every week was 1 week a year. It was a lot of work, but I remember that every time taking a moment during that week and just being amazed at the fact that I got paid to do this because I was having so much fun with the kids, with all the people that came with the planning, and and I realized it's such a blessing to be able to do those things. So maybe kids camp isn't your thing. It probably is not my thing anymore as I get older. Um, but what is it that's yours to do? What's that thing that makes your heart sing? What's that thing that I always know I'm doing something that I love when I completely lose track of time. I feel like I've stepped out of time and I'll look up and hours have gone by. As I'm writing this book series that I've been writing, that often happens. I'll look down and I'll look up, it's 3 to 4 hours later, and I'm like, where did that time go? It's because I'm in that field of creation. And the one thing I really, ask each person is what what are you doing and are you doing it joyfully? Now, when I'm talking about work for Labor Day, I'm not necessarily talking about work has compensation. It may be something that you're doing as a volunteer. And I look at all the parents out there, the stay-at-home parents, and they may not be getting compensated for it. They're doing a lot of work, and hopefully they're able to do it joyfully. And if you're not able to answer the question that it's a joyful thing for you, we can start to look at that question. What do you need to do that thing that you love? And when I think about labor, it brings up memories of my parents and my grandparents and what they did for what they did for a living. Both my parents are retired now. All my grandparents have passed on, made their transition. But my mom was a teacher, and she's from a long line of teachers in our family. And I guess I can say that I'm a teacher too because I I uh I teach classes, but I also as a minister um I teach. So my mom loved what she did for a living. She taught fifth graders, and now even at 85, oftentimes she'll take time out to volunteer to teach English as a second language or to help people that are trying to get their GEDs to help them get prepared for it. And she does it out of love. My father was a ship driver, we say. So it means he was in the Navy. He went to the Naval Academy. He was the first in the family to go to college. And he was able to do the thing that he loved so much. And then when he was ready to move on from the military, he had his other love, and that love was flying. And he was able to get his pilot's license and then fly for Air West in Arizona, out of Arizona, fly up to Alaska, and do what he loved do what he really loved. So growing up in my home, though, both my parents did what they loved, but the importance that was placed on my house was not so much in doing what you love, was about security. And being financially secure was the most important thing in the home, in my home. So my parents, even though they did what they loved, financial security is the number one thing. And you can imagine what their reaction was when I came along and said, "Hey, I'm going to start my own company." They're like, "Wait a minute, wait, I don't know about that. You need to really think this through because it's not secure." But they're very glad that I did now. But where did they learn their lessons from? And I have both my grandmothers were remarkable women. Absolutely. They had careers when most women didn't have one at that time. My grandma Fisher, that was my mother's mother. She grew up, her father was in an accident. He was a farmer in an accident and died. And she grew up helping support her four brothers and mother. And with all that, she was still able to work her way through college. She got her teaching degree in music, University of Pennsylvania. And then she went on and got her master's at Boston University and got her doctorate at Cornell. And it was in music and education. And my grandfather was a supply officer. He was a Army colonel. And even though she was traveling around, and back then, most officers' wives, that's what they did for a living. My grandmother was out there teaching. She wanted to whether it was she was teaching the kids in the military or when they came back retired, she taught full time. She loved what she did, and she always instilled that in me. Do what you love, but also get your education and build your career. My grandma Lovett was my grandfather, and I'll talk about him in a little while. He was in the Navy, and my grandma Lovett was able to. She didn't have a college degree. She was able to work her way up. She became manager of a credit union with the Navy at a fairly young age. And what she did was she saved money. She would invest it in property, which ended up turned into Honolulu, which we know what happened in the 80s in Honolulu with the property, but was able to make those investments and really just build a great financial future. And she was the first woman, especially out on the West Coast in the Western Pacific, to have a job like that. So I had these remarkable role models in my life, and showing me that, yes, you can do what you want, but also you can do what you love. But we grow up in a society where, the popular song, working 9 to 5 is no way to make a living. We hear that. Or we hear, if you work hard, you'll do well. If you don't, you won't. So a lot of the messages that we get around this is to spend our life working really hard, and then we should do okay. And whether we're compensated or not, we start to work within those parameters, and they're not really parameters. These thoughts end up setting up self-imposed boundaries on what we can do, or lead to fear. So we have to work ourselves out of that. Are you doing what you love today? Can you say, you know what, I am doing what I love? Do you get compensated for it? If you don't, is there a way you can get compensated? And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And when I say compensation, I'm not just talking about money. It's so much more than that. We live in the world, where the majority of us, we work to pay for the things that we need. That's our reality, our homes, food on the table, and so much more. But financial compensation is not the only compensation that I'm talking about here that's important. The other compensation is joy. Do you feel joyful about what you're doing? Does what you're doing bring you satisfaction? On the flip side of the question, on this question is what you're doing bringing you misery? Do you cringe on Sundays if you work a regular work week, that you have to spend the next 5 days at the job you hate? So we have to ask ourselves that. Are we somewhere in the middle? And if you hate what you do, is there a way to change your job or to do something else? Start considering making that change. My sister's a really good example of this situation. She works in occupational therapy. She's worked in the university system for a long time. And she started out loving what she does. There's been a lot of politics added to it now. Um, she was also the victim of a stalker a couple of years ago on the campus. There was some things that have happened along the way, and she finds she's not loving this anymore. She's got great benefits. She's extremely well compensated for what she does. And they have this incredible retirement plan that if she stays in the job for 5 more years, she'll retire at 100% employment. So there's a lot of perks for her, reasons for her to stay. And she had to really weigh how she's feeling, and we've had many, many conversations about it. Does she want to spend the next 5 years doing this? But she finally made the decision is yes, you know what? First of all, she does enjoy the fact that the students that she's working with, she helps them. And they really appreciate her for it. So she is feeling that satisfaction from that part of the job. But she's also decided that when she's not there and she's putting boundaries on what her work schedule is. And so when her work day is up, she's done. And when she's not there, she does what she loves. And one of them is volunteering to help with rescue animals. She loves that. She's also taking some classes because she's always wanted to work in the field of hospice, which I give her great kudos because it takes a very special person to be able to do that. So she's made the decision this, yes, I'm doing this for 5 more years because it's what's, best for me right now. But she's finding joy in the places where she can with her students, but finding joy in the other things that she enjoys. So she may not be leaving the place that's making her unhappy, but she's filling her life with the things she's passionate about. And you know what she said to me is that while she's able to do that, her days at the job are also easier now because coming from that place of happiness. So what's happening in your life right now? Where do you feel passionate? What really brings meaning to your life? What were you born to do? And I always say we use the gauge on that. So I put my hands together and I have this gauge and I say, okay, how do you feel about what you're doing? And it might lean this way. And it's like, okay, 92%, I love what I'm doing. And that's a really good place to be. Or you may be in the middle and say, yeah, I think there's some things I can improve, but I'm okay with this. So then you ask, well, how can I make that improvement? And then there's the flip side where you say, oh my gosh, I need to do something soon because I can't stand this. So when you think about this meter, where do you feel like you are in the meter right now? Are you in I'm happy? Or are you in the, oh my gosh, things need to change soon? And really need to think about what has to happen for that. This is a really personal thing. So only you can make those decisions. Only you know how you truly feel. So I guess the first thing we have to question, and whether we're at the 92%, or some people may be at 100, or that I'm okay, or I really need some changes. The first question we have to ask ourselves is, do I have the courage to soar? And what do I mean by that? Well, if we know what makes our heart sing, and if we're not quite doing that, I need to make a plan. Do I have the courage to do it? I was nervous and the recession kind of helped push me along in making the decision to open my company because not-for-profits were having excuse me, having such a hard time at the time. But I really had to think about, I was leaving, and I did work in my job for 5 years while I was building my company before I made the step over to full-time employment. But the question was, did I have the courage to leave the benefits behind, to the paycheck behind, and all of those things that came with it? And at the end of the day, I built the infrastructure to a point where I felt comfortable with that, but I did have the courage. And whether it's you're having the courage to take that step out into employment of your own choice, or go back to school, take the classes that you need to take for it, whatever it is, that's a great question to ask yourself. Because it doesn't matter how old or how young you are, because everybody deserves to do the thing that they love, to do the thing that we were born to do that thing that we came here to do. When the time came when I was building my company, I also got the call to be a minister. Like, oh boy, what am I going to do with this? And so it took building a ministry. Many of you were with me during the journey, the 7-year journey of becoming that minister. It took me a little longer than most people, to actually longer than 7 years because I was doing it part time. And still today, it's not the job that pays my bills, but it's a job I love. It's a job I absolutely am honored to be able to do. And when I'm not here, I'm at my company during the week working and doing something there that I love. So the question, and I had to think about this was, and for each one of us to ask ourselves, do I feel a sense of wonder at what I do? And if you don't, maybe ask yourself the question, what do I need to do to feel that sense of wonder? How am I showing up in the world in this what I'm doing? Or how do I want to show up in the world if you're working on something else? Do I bring joy to other people with what I'm doing when I touch their lives? Am I bringing that joy? Do I own what I do? I do. And in fact, sometimes I have to own the mistakes I make. It's not always comfortable, but it's important to do. I have to own what I'm doing in this world. And last question for you is, do I embrace this role? So I know that, things can happen from time to time. And my one grandfather was from Kentucky. He, Grandpa Lovett, my dad's dad, he joined the Navy, or I should say snuck in the Navy when he was 15. He was able to get his papers altered, his birth certificate altered, and he actually joined the service at 15. He was so proud to serve his country. That's what he wanted to do. That was his joy in life. And he did it well. From being on the crew team who won the Olympic gold medal when he was on the crew team, to serving, to driving, to serving in any capacity that he could. And he became a master chief, which is top of, master at what he was doing in the military. But what he did, he was getting older and his assignment changed. He just wasn't as old as they thought he was, but his assignment changed. And he was put in charge of something very different. He was made a master chief cook on one of the ships. And he wasn't sure if that's what he wanted to do. But then he decided, he thought about it, and he said, well, this is where I'm being placed. So I want to do the best I can at this job. And he made sure that that kitchen was spotless, that his men would excel, and that he supported them in what they did. And his number one goal was to make sure that the food that came out of that kitchen, as he used to say, was the best damn grub that came out of any Navy kitchen. And he was really passionate about that. And he was always stayed passionate about the cooking. I remember a time when I took a pie up to his house for dessert. He lived in Hawaii when I lived there. My grandparents retired there. And it wasn't quite cooked on the bottom. It was a little, I told Grandpa, that's fine, just, work around it. And he stopped me and said, Cherie, if you're going to do this, do it right. You have to look at everything that you do in life and do it right. So he sent me in the kitchen to make another pie. And I did. And he came out and inspected the crust. But that was his passion. He was letting me know, he was telling me that everything that he did was with passion. And I have to admit that the second pie was much better. So he embraced what he did. He ended up loving it. His goal in life was to serve his country. And whether that meant he was driving ships, cleaning out ships, or cooking and presenting the meals, he made sure he did it, excuse me, with the best possible way that he could. And that's what we have to ask ourselves. Are we showing up and serving and doing what we do in the best possible way where we can feel proud and love it? Someone asked me this question a few years ago, and I'm going to ask you the question today. If you won the lottery, the big one, not the big one, tomorrow, what would you change about your life, especially in your work area? And I realized, after I thought about it for a while, I realized I wouldn't make huge changes in what I was doing. I love what I would do. And the changes I would make would be so that I could do it better, serve more people, build, with Unity Radio, like build a bigger community that can serve more people, do things in a way to continue helping people, maybe have an awesome building. But that was the changes. And I thought about my life at that point and I said, doesn't that mean I've already won the lottery of life? Because I get to work from this perspective. And yes, I have to say yes, but it's not really a lottery. It's living intentionally, living from our heart, making the decisions, listening to our intuition so that we can make the decisions that are best in our life. I wouldn't change, no matter how much money I had, I wouldn't change what I'm doing on a day to day basis. Maybe I'd change where I put funds to do more of it. And maybe, maybe take a few more vacations. It was nice. This was my first sabbatical last month. That was very nice. I might have a few more vacations, but I already live in the home I love. I drive a car I love. I get to spend time with the people that I love, all you beautiful souls. I'm so blessed because of that. And this happened because of intentional living, of living the principles that we live, of living life and finding that inner joy that's not relying on the outside. So if we show up intentionally, we can walk this journey in joy. We can decide where we want to put our energy. And I'm not saying that when we do this that nothing ever goes wrong. There may be that health challenge. There may be a loss with a relationship in our life, a job, a change, things like that. But when we show up intentionally, I find that often the doors open that I never expected to open. If anybody would have told me I would have a company like I do today, 20 years ago, I would have been, well, it was 20, like 25 years ago, I would have said, no, are you crazy? And if anybody had ever said, you're going to be a minister, I'd be like, yeah, I think you've been drinking too much because that wasn't where I was at the time. But by opening my heart and living that life, and it's not that I live a life without mistakes, I've been able to find that joy. And I've had the honor to watch many of you finding it, whether you're on that journey, you're already there, or you're just stepping on. This is a wonderful journey, and it's a great journey to travel together. So every day is not perfect. Things can happen that might derail how we live our lives, might change it for a while, might change it forever. But just go back to the basics of this week when we think about Labor Day tomorrow. Are you living in joy with what you do? Do you feel satisfaction? Is this what you were born to do? Maybe you have a calling that you're born to do something else. If you're doing something that maybe not be the perfect thing to you, does it give you time to do the other things that you love in life? So work is a big part of our prosperity, but it's not the whole thing. It's not about just the money. Prosperity is about every area of our lives. And we know next Sunday we'll be starting the fall series on the soul of money, which is coming from a different place, a place of sufficiency. Excuse me. So if you have questions about what you want to do today, just hold that. Hold it intentionally. Sorry about that. What do you need to do to make it happen? And I love this formula. Oh, sorry about this, you guys. The word plurk. I love that word. Plurk is play plus work. Oh, that's about living joyfully from the internal, about loving what you do. And it's not just about balance in your life between play and work. It's about work also being your play. Are you working or are you plurking? And I say, plurk on, my friends, plurk on. Enjoy this week and happy Labor Day. Bless you all. We'll go to meditation now. And excuse me as I clear my throat a little bit. As we say our meditation affirmation together, I am open, receptive to the spirit of truth, healing in me what needs to be healed and revealing to me what needs to be revealed. And as we take that deep breath in to the best of your ability, all the way down and release. Release any anxiety that you may have, the worries. I know that you are here living intentionally. You are here. Your soul is on this journey where you are meant to do the things that you were called to do. As we get ready to move to meditation, we just want to hold questions. Is my work giving me satisfaction? Or is it at least able to provide that can do the things that I love? Is there something else I'm meant to do? And we ask to have the things revealed to us that need to be revealed. And sometimes the answer to that is there. I do have the courage to take the steps that I need to accomplish what I need to accomplish. Let's allow that just to sit, not in a place. If you're feeling anxious with those questions, just breathe into it. Because these are, just allow them to sit in your heart as we move into meditation, this time of silence. And as we bring our attention, start to bring it back to the present. We do so knowing that we may have had some thoughts or feelings occur, they may be coming. And we are open and receptive to have them revealed to us. To see where we need to be, what we need to do in our lives. And to have open hearts to know that we are meant to live a life that is healthy and prosperous, joyful and peaceful. And we are meant to live this life in love. That is our inheritance. So as these ideas come, and you may not even know where they're going to go yet, and just receive them in gratitude, knowing that the way is there and open, and knowing that where you are right now is perfect, and that you are a perfect child of God, meant to receive all the good and meant to live a life filled with joy. You're so grateful for the teachings of the Fillmores who brought them to us, for all the guides and masters and the wisdom that they have, for Jesus, our way shower, for showing us this blueprint, who walked joyfully on this earth as we're meant to do. As we say thank you, and so it is.